We will have a recording follow-up of this, so welcome. Now, some of you have attended some of the other sessions. We had 2 sessions in December, one on club contest, one on how to do an area and division contest. And this is going to be focused specifically on the contest chair responsibilities. Excuse me. And if you're like Philip, you just can't get enough because he comes to every one of them. So let's go ahead and start. While I go through the slides, I just want to let you know that at any time you can ask a question. It's not required that you sit passively or quietly. If something doesn't make sense, ask. If something does make sense, or you want more clarification of something, just go ahead and ask. Now, I will be putting 2 links, actually 3 links, but I'll be putting one link to the contest resources on the Google Drive, which is complete. They are not on the district website yet, but it's complete on the Google Drive. The other thing you're going to get is a document called Organizing. I'll show that one first, as a matter of fact. Organizing an online speech contest. It's designed for the contest chair. It goes ahead and outlines all the responsibilities, when to start planning, the contest chair responsibilities, your tech chair, your Toastmaster, your committee, if you should get one, script review, your contest officials, and what their primary responsibilities, contest materials, additional tech chips, pre-contest briefings for your dry runs, contestant briefing, judge and functionary briefing, script review, contest day, and it also includes the Tech Chair Extraordinaire document that was provided by Carrie Lynn Morgan. So you're going to get that into the chat. It's also on the Google Drive, but you're going to get that in the chat specifically. You'll also get a copy of all the slides I'm sharing tonight in the chat. They're also on the Google Drive. And you're going to get the link to the Google Drive, which has everything, all the scripts, all the documents, everything you need. So the one thing I want to share is that it's important that as the contest chair, you become very familiar with the flow and the overall responsibilities. You don't have to do them, but you need to know who's doing what, when, where, and why. And that's what we're going to look at. One of the things is, when do you start planning? You start planning now. If you haven't already done any planning, getting ready for an area contest, which is supposed to be in the beginning of March, or a division contest beginning of April, this is the time to do it. You do it right now. Don't hold off. The organizing document I gave you will give you the outline of everything you need to do to start your planning. As a contest chair, ideally you have some prior contest experience. If you don't, it's okay. If you can read, that's all you need. But you organize and oversee the contest team and the contest from start to finish. Now, we have a tendency sometimes in Toastmasters to say, oh, well, I asked Bob to do that, and not do any follow-up with Bob. Follow up with Bob. We're going to provide you a checklist that you can work down for the people who are assigned to roles, and you can also use as part of your planning program of what needs to be done. So if you're doing an area contest and you're an area director, you need to get a contest chair. Don't try to be your own contest chair. You work with your contest chair. Same thing with the division. Work with your contest chair. Don't be, as a division director, don't try to be the contest chair. The contest chair is the person who makes sure that everybody's doing their thing. So working with the area division director, the contest chair should pick that Toastmaster, a chief judge, sergeant at arms, and a tech chair. Now, the important thing about the tech chair is area and division contests are online. That's it. District just said area and division contests are online. You need a tech chair. You need someone familiar with Zoom, and the tech chair should also have a backup, and we'll touch more of that in a little bit. For your chief judge, you want someone who has some familiarity with contests as well. But the important thing is we give a full chief judge briefing checklist. If a person can read the checklist, They should be able to understand their responsibilities. In addition, we provide a copy of the contest rule book from Toastmasters, which outlines all the responsibilities of the functionaries. So the first thing you want to do is try to get your chief judge and tech chair lined up. Toastmasters, sometimes you can draw from contestants who don't make it. For instance, I'm going to compete in my contest for international in my club and I don't make it. Approach me, come to me and say, hey, would you like to be Toastmasters of the international contest at the area level or division level, however you choose to do that. But go ahead and start getting your team assembled as soon as you can. The sergeant at arms should be someone who's able to start the meeting on time and able to help work with the tech chair to manage people in the room. So any questions so far before I go forward from here?
Yeah, does it say anywhere that it's obligatory that area directors be their own contest chairs and division directors? I've
No,
heard
no,
like I wanted
I
to
just said they should not be. There's nothing
because
that
I
says they
wanted
should.
to
Go ahead,
yeah,
Mario.
I wanted to run for a contest chair for a division and I was told no, the division director does the contest chair and I was like,
Well,
why?
that may be how your district does it. That's the only thing I can say. They may prefer it that way, but there's no rule that says they should. And as I'm recommending, my recommendation is that they shouldn't. The area division director, ideally, are helping the contest chair find appropriate candidates for chief judge, toastmaster, sergeant at arms, and tech chair. You know all your clubs. You've visited all your clubs. You've seen different people. So you're a better candidate for helping them find appropriate people, as well as finding judges later on. But for actually managing and running the contest, I believe it's always best to have an independent contest chair. But Mario, that may be a rule within your district. And if that's how the district chooses to do it, then that's how they choose to do it.
One more thing, is there a difference between contest master and toastmaster? I think they're interchangeable, but is there like any nuanced
Well,
difference
you're
or
going to
is
find that
just
I'm also going to recommend that your contest chair, which some people call contest master, should not be the Toastmaster. Here's what I'm going to say is the contest chair is managing the entire event. The Toastmaster is managing one contest within that event. Yeah. So there are two different levels of responsibility. My opinion and my experience says that those people should not cross over and do the same thing. But some people do call the Toastmaster a contest master. Some people call their contest chair a contest master. My recommendation is that you have an independent chair. It can be called contest master, and you have an independent Toastmaster, that they're not the same person, and that the area director or division director is not either one of those roles either.
yeah, I've served over 30 contests in the past year and I've done all roles and I have to say when I was a toastmaster, I only did the introductions. I had the contest profile forms and I did the interviews. And that's pretty much quite alleviating for the chair because I take over the contestants and they're running stuff in the
Well, we're
background.
going to cover through some more of that stuff as we go forward, Mario. So let's go forward to make sure we cover everything and come back to that. So, um, as I said, you want to get your contest team together: chief judge, toastmaster, sergeant at arms, tech chair. I also want to mention here that if you can have a different toastmaster for each contest, that helps mix up the energy in a good way for the attendees who are attending. But you don't have to. Uh, I do have a preference that you have a singular chief judge so that you have a very consistent management of the balloting and everything else through the contest. But you can also have two chief judges. It's really based on your availability of people. Now, the speech contest packages are available at this link. Since you're getting these slides, you're going to get this link as well. So you'll get it, and there's the international speech contest. Well, that says Tall Tales. I need to make sure you get the evaluation link. However, all that information is in the contest resource link. They're actually already downloaded for you. The contest information packet for contestants is the speech contest rulebook. Preferentially, for a planning perspective from the contest chair, give them the section that applies to their contest. Don't just give them the whole rule book. A contestant will never read it. Give them the section that applies. If you want to put it out into a separate little document for them, do that as well. They need a profile, they need to certify eligibility, and it's always good to give the contestants an appropriate contest ballot. So as you're going to go forward into your pre-planning, these are things you need to plan that each contestant is going to need to receive much before the contest. Now, Mario was making a reference, which we'll get into a little bit, as to whether the contest chair sends this out or the Toastmaster sends it out. And we'll get to that in a little bit as well. Timing material, one of the things you're going to find on that resource link you get are timing backgrounds. Now, the timing backgrounds are a little different than some clubs use. One is you don't use a timing background that does a countdown. You don't do countdown timers. The contestants are not supposed to know their time. They're just supposed to know green, yellow, red. That's it. The other thing is don't have your primary and secondary timer with different backgrounds. If you need to cut over to the secondary timer because the primary timer, something goes wrong, the background should look the same as what the primary was using throughout the contest. Now, the ones that we put into that resource list also are a white background that says timer, a green background that says green, a yellow that says yellow, and a red that says red. They actually say that. The reason for the words are for those people who may be slightly colorblind, and a lot of the population is, especially the men. We just don't admit it. But the other thing is some of the clubs use a black background. Now look right now at the screen. Look at our screen right here. So you see all these black backgrounds with white letters. So if your timer has a black background with white letters and a contestant hasn't hidden non-participants, it's harder for them to pick it out, even when you spotlight them. So I prefer that we use a white background with black letters that say timer. It's just a preference. You can make your own call on that, but I'm letting you know why I suggest that. And so those are the ones that are in the contest resource list. Let's see. Mario, you're actually getting, Mario, those are good things, but you're getting ahead of where we are. So the other thing is there's a timer record sheet that's also included in the contest resources. Now, since we're giving you all the resources, we're kind of laying it out for you. We're also now going to go into how you use these resources. The judging material is there, speech contest book, evaluation ballot, tie-breaking ballot, and the international ballots with the tie-breaking ballots. Now, I've got to make a point here that we're going to come back to a couple of times. We're going to make reference a lot of times to voting judges. A tie-breaking judge is not a voting judge. Keep that in mind. The voting judges are the judges that you pick that do your primary judging for all the contestants. Tie-breaking judge is simply that. Why is that important? It's important for two reasons. When you do your dry run with your judges, the tie-breaking judge is not invited. The other thing is the tie-breaking judge cannot put forth a protest. And if a protest is put forth, only the voting judges are brought in for discussion of the protest. So remember, the tie-breaking judge is not considered a voting judge by TI rules. And if that confuses anybody, let me know now. Okay. It's important later as we get into it. The judge's certification you need to have. Now, one of the things we talked about a little bit more, I'm going to come back to this screen first, a little bit more was the eligibility of the contestants. For division contests, I want to give you a warning. Contestants who are contestants now that are eligible through the end of March. but they've got to pay dues, and the club has to pay dues for April in order to be eligible for their division contests. So you really have to check your contestants for a division contest right at the start of April to make sure they're still eligible, that their dues are in, their club is still good, club still has 8 members. Always keep that in mind if you're a contest chair for division. You need to recheck that eligibility. And quite frankly, I don't trust anybody eligibility form. We have the link in the document for the eligibility checker at Toastmasters International. You just put in a name, they come back and tell you if they're eligible for a speech contest. So, okay. You get the form because you want the signature, but we've received forms in the past of people who said, this is original, this is my speech, and it was a plagiarized speech. So, people are people. So I recommend that you check the eligibility as the contest chair. Pass that off to the Toastmaster. Don't rely on the Toastmaster to do that. You check the eligibility of your contestants for both contests. Make sure they are eligible. If there's any question, you follow up with that.
So, Salazar, question on the eligibility. Is it mainly that they are a member of the club? Is that correct?
Yeah, for instance, well, there's 2 things. For evaluation, they strictly have to be a paid member of a club, and the club has to be a club of 8 or more members, and the club had to have paid dues to Toastmasters. So that's it. For international, you have to have completed 2 paths in any path and pathways. Now, I want to be clear too. It used to be a couple of years ago, they said you could have like 1 path here and 1 path there. It's not. It's 2 paths in a single path in pathways.
Okay.
Now, the other exception to that is any distinguished Toastmaster. So any distinguished Toastmaster or 2 paths and pathways qualify you to compete in the International Speech Contest, as well as being a paid member of a club that's paid dues to TI, and the club is in good standing, which means it has 8 or more members. Yes, Philip.
Salazar, excuse me, you're saying 2 paths within a path. You mean 2 levels, the first 2 level 1, level 2.
Better way to say that. Excellent. Thank you for saying it that way, Philip. It's much clearer that way. But you are correct. So, yes, Mario.
From what I've heard, you can do level 1 from one path and then level 2 from another path, as long as they're 2 different paths, 2
No, not
different
anymore,
levels.
Mario. It's got to be from one path.
Oh,
It used to be that
tightening
way,
up.
but it's changed.
They're tightening it up.
Yeah, it's got to be from a single path.
When did they remove the CCNCL eligibility? Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last
But they also added in the distinction of you can be a DTM as well. So that requirement doesn't hold for DTMs. The other thing you get in the contest resource thing is you will get all these certificates. They're all in there. All you've got to do is fill out names, and we'll go through. This is just really the resource list before we get into some of the ways of using them. And you'll get the counter forms, but you get 2 types of counter forms. For your ballot counters, there's a tally sheet that TI has, the form 1176. We also have an online tally form that we'll be showing you in a moment. You can actually use that to tally with your ballot counters as well as the chief judge, and it works very, very well and helps tally for you. Dry run dates for contestants should always have the Toastmaster, chief judge, sergeant at arms, and timer. Dry run for judges should have chief judge, judges, ballot counters, and both of those should have tech chair. Make sure you get that tech chair and get your Toastmasters. And it's all found here at this link. This tiny URL, D101 contest resources. There is a whole series of folders which have all of the information that we've just covered. You only need to go to a folder to look for the material that's in there. It's all there for you. Even though we give you some TI links, with the exception of the eligibility checker, all the information in here is current and updated, including the briefing checklist, the notification forms, the contest planning spreadsheet, the organize the contest forms, the current district protocol list for District 101, which won't help you, Mario, and notification. Rulebook is sprinkled throughout, but we also have a separate folder for rulebook. There's a sample program in here. There's the scripts. Now, the scripts for evaluation and international are current. There's still a script in there for Tall Towns, which is from last year. We intend to actually have all the scripts for all the contests in there ultimately, so we don't have to keep doing this every year. So I just left the Tall Tales there for now, so they can be brought current. Tech guidelines are in here, timer and ballot counters, timer backgrounds, Toastmaster briefing, and training slides. And what I'll do is I'll switch this to one thing and show you. Maybe I won't. Oh, I had it up. I guess it's not up now. Let me just see what I did. Excuse me 1 second. Oh, that's why. Okay. Never mind. I actually had it open, but because I'm recording, it's not letting me shift my video view so I could show you the other one. So it closed it off. I wanted to show you what was in the folders. But for the most part, this is the list of the folders that are there. When you go to this link, you're going to find all that contest material there. You can download it. You can vary it. Now, the scripts, we recommend you can change the scripts, but pay attention to the key components. The scripts are currently written with logistic information as well as guidelines for each of the roles that are in there. Doesn't mean you can't adjust them. Doesn't mean you can't change the logistics. Just know to not vary from the actual rules themselves. So where do you begin? You begin either in the club contest or contest planning spreadsheet area with organizing a speech contest. That's what you want. Go to organizing a speech contest and you've got that document I showed you earlier on the PDF, which is actually still there. That lays all of the information out to get you started. My recommendation is you start here. You go through here. You make the notes of the things you want to pay attention to, that you want to follow up on, that you want to specifically point out to your functionaries as you bring them onto your team. And then you start planning your sessions with your team. Now, I say that as if that's an easy thing to do. I know it's not. I know it's not. I know getting the people is often a challenge. You know, you want to get a tech chair, though, somebody who knows how to run that Zoom and manage it. A couple of things that are critically important for that tech chair are not only managing the contestants and their ability to be unmuted and muted, their ability to be spotlighted, the timer's ability to be spotlighted, but also the ability to keep everyone else muted when the contestants are speaking. So that's why you have a primary and a backup to have them do that. The sergeant at arms can also help with the function of keeping people muted once the contest starts. Chief judge, 1 or 2, make sure they're knowledgeable about how to handle the balloting, how to handle the protest. That's critically important. Judges, ballot counters, and timers are selected with the concurrence of your chief judge. Sometimes the chief judge will go out and get them. But as an area director or division director or contest chair, work with your chief judge to see if they have some recommendations. Now, keep in mind, for a judge at an area contest, you want somebody who's been in Toastmasters at least 6 months. You know, if I joined last week, I'm probably not ready to be a judge. You know, maybe I haven't even given too many evaluations. You want somebody that has some ability to do that. Ballot counters is a wonderful role for people who've never had experience with contests. You know, and they can learn more about the judging process and how the contest flows by being a ballot counter. Timer, you need a timer that has presence of mind. So what I mean by that is you don't want timers that get rattled when things go wrong, because they're a very specific constant for your contestants. And it's important that they know their role well. So just somebody who's stable, has some experience. I know some people that always loved to be timers, but that doesn't mean they need to be a timer all the time. So get people you think that would do the job, but you can get somebody as a backup timer who's never done timing before. I often do that. Same thing with ballot counters. A judge, if they've got 6 months experience, I'll spend time with them to learn what judging is versus evaluating. Toastmaster 1 or 2. Like I said, it's nice to change Toastmasters from contests. Now, the rule years ago, it's not a rule now, used to be that last year's winner at an area, for instance, in a particular contest, would be the Toastmaster in the contest this year. Sometimes that's a way to get somebody who's had some contest experience to be the Toastmaster. But that's not a requirement, but it is a good place to start. So if Philip competed last year in international, but isn't competing this year, approach Philip. Ask him if he'd like to be the Toastmaster for the contest. And you can do that and do that well. So take a look at that. Sergeant at Arms is really just somebody who can get you started. And I always tell my Sergeant at Arms this, and I recommend it for you. I don't really care what anybody else says. If 6 p.m. is the time to start the contest, then gavel down at 6 p.m. Everybody else will get in line. Why? Our attendees, our Toastmasters, always get annoyed if we start late and we run long. So get them started, get them going. Everybody else can scramble to get in. But the Sergeant at Arms is also critical in evaluation for managing the evaluation contestants who've been moved to a breakout room. And we'll get into that in a little bit as well. Get other support as needed. One that we're going to mention is who's going to do your first, second, and third place certificates at the contest. That's important to pay attention to. And we talk about that in that organizing, but we're going to touch on it here as well. Tech chair experienced, 1 or more assistant tech chairs. The more people managing tech with specific roles, don't let them overlap each other, specific roles. 1 can manage people in the waiting room. Make sure you have a waiting room for your Zoom coming in. You don't want people popping in while someone's giving their presentation, whatever it is. So you want them in a waiting room. You want somebody now to communicate to that waiting room and said, we'll bring you in as soon as the speaker's done speaking. You want that. So that's good for 1 tech chair to do. You want another one who's watching to make sure people are staying muted and they're not popping their video on and off so that they're disrupting a speaker. You want somebody who's doing that, and you want somebody managing their overall tech for the room. So get as many tech chairs as you can and engage your Sergeant at Arms as one of your tech chairs. So when you look for your Sergeant at Arms, look for one who can do that assistance and support. They set up the Zoom link. They set up the dry run meeting rooms. They set up the online contestant meeting rooms, set up the breakout rooms. They assign co-host permissions. They assist with screen shares during the event with contestants. Now, one of the things you want to look at for screen shares is your meeting set up for everybody to do screen shares? And will it allow it, or is that something you give to contestants at the time that they go to speak? Making a contestant a co-host has some drawbacks on that. If I'm a co-host of a session, that means when someone comes into the breakout room or the waiting room, I'm notified. So if I'm a contestant that's speaking and you made me a co-host just so I could screen share, then I'm going to get notified somebody came in the waiting room. That's a disruption to their speaking process. So it's important to work with your tech chair on the best way to handle any need for screen shares by contestants. This is part of your pre-planning. They also assist with the audio and technical issues with the contestants. Have any of you had a contestant suddenly in the middle of their presentation have an audio problem?
Yep.
Yeah. Philip, Mario said yes. Yeah. Now, my primary experience though was actually just as he was getting ready to start, he had no audio. We did the normal thing. We did delay. The tech chair worked with them to see if they could get it working. Couldn't get it working. So he was moved to the back of the queue, and an assistant tech chair went into a breakout room to work on audio with him till he was finally able to come back. But that way we can continue the contest moving forward. So the tech chair has to be knowledgeable enough to work with people on that, not just somebody who knows how to start a Zoom meeting. Your primary. Your assistant tech chairs don't have to have that as much detail, but you want somebody there for that. And that's for the support of the contestants. So what did you do, Mario, when you had your incident?
I told the timer to pause everything, pause the time first and foremost. So the contestant doesn't because technically it's a timing device. No, it's not a timing device malfunction. It's on the speaker's end. It's the same as if they were kicked from the meeting and they'll have like 2-3 minutes to come back. Otherwise, they're disqualified. So I just told them, can we don't hear you. Can you, I told the timer to stop the time and I asked the chief judge, is this okay? If the timer is stopped, we waited, they came back and then they resumed. And I asked the chief judge, is it okay if they resume the time? Is it, yeah, they said it's okay. And the rest was good. But sometimes it can come out as cheating because people can fake faulty audio issues or connectivity so they can buy more time to read through their notes.
Potentially, yes, but the key thing is they can't start over. That's as long as they don't start over. Philip, what did you do in your case when you had the experience? You may not have been a functionary of the contest, but
Yeah, I actually was, and I'm just reminded of it now that the mistake I made was we did not pause the timer. So he was able to get back to his audio and continue from where he was, but my timer had run on, and instead of checking with my timer and stopping her and then having her start again or having her somehow count for the time he was stopped, he continued his speech and then he got a green screen a lot sooner than he thought he should. And that threw off his speech. So, and I was like, and of course, we're just like, the contest people. And I'm sure if you haven't said this, Salazar, you're going to. We're like NFL football referees. You don't want to be a part of the process. You don't want to be part of the problem, right? And every time I've been in too many contests where I've mispronounced a name, I've mispronounced a speech title, I haven't controlled my timer appropriately, and then you're beating yourself up afterwards. And by the way, Salazar, that's why I'm always here at your workshops, buddy.
Well, thank you, Philip. And just like Mario, the things you mentioned too are things we're going to come up with again, but it's important to point out. But as long as we're here on this, a couple of key points. Something happens to the time or something happens technically with the speaker, stop the time. That's it. Time stops. Now, the timers need to understand when you're doing pre-planning with them that they're going to be submitting to the chief judge 2 times. One for, gave 1 minute, 30 seconds and then 4 minutes, for the second one. And then the chief judge will look at that and say, they're within time. The other thing is we'll talk about technical issues, but they get an automatic 30-second grace by the chief judge, not by the timers. Timers don't deal with that. The chief judge can add that at the end and say, you know what? He was over by 5, but I'm going to give him a 5 seconds. I'll give him a 30-second grace. He or she is good. That's up to the chief judge. That's part of their role. So those are all good issues. Thank you, Mario and Philip, for both of those. Yeah, and you want your tech chairs to understand how to manage the audio and video issues of the contestants, because the contestants in most cases start to panic. They're already a little stressed. This now happens, their stress level goes up. What we want to do is keep them calm. So when you're doing your pre-planning from the contest chair perspective, you want to review these issues with the tech chair in advance. Not wait till you do a dry run, not wait till later, because there's got to be thought and planning about how you're going to manage it. They also move the contestants into the breakout rooms. They also move chief judge and ballot counters into a breakout room. They also move judges and chief judge into breakout rooms if needed for a protest. Now, depending on your tech chair, they may decide a couple of ways of doing this. I've had tech chairs that choose to open breakout rooms as needed. In other words, if we're doing the evaluation contest, they'll create a breakout room, but they'll open it once they need it, and the people go in, but they don't create one for the judges. Once the contestants are out of that breakout room, they close it, and then they open another one for the judges. I don't really care. But this is something you want to know and feel comfortable with your tech chair, because you don't want delays in your breakout rooms. And then if there's a protest, as a chief judge, I've always asked them to keep my judge's breakout room available. Because if there's a protest, they don't need to open another one. We just move the judges and chief judge to that one. But some tech chairs don't prefer to do that. So it's based on your tech chair, their preference, and what they're most comfortable doing, and if you're comfortable with how they describe it. So keep that in mind. You're the driver, they're the passenger, but they do have some play in where the bus goes. So that is it for your tech chair, to make sure that you get someone who can understand and do all those things. They may have no experience with it, but these are the things you want to work out in advance. The chief judge needs to be familiar with the rule book and the contest script. Now, in those folders I showed you, there's a script folder, and the scripts are in there. You're going to do a script review with those folks. We mentioned it earlier. We're going to mention it again. Make sure you do a script review before the dry run. The script review is not for contestants. The script review is not for judges at their dry run. The script review is for the contest chair, the sergeant at arms, the toastmaster, the chief judge, and the timers. Those are the functionaries that are all coming together to make that contest flow. So the chief judge briefs the contest functionaries. Now, what does that mean? It means chief judge briefs the timers, but the timers also work for the toastmaster. So the timers go both ways. But they want to ensure compliance with TI contest rules. So when you've checked eligibility, not only should the toastmaster know, you need to let the chief judge know all the contestants are eligible, and they should get the eligibility forms. They brief and verify judges' eligibility. So a judge's eligibility is going to vary by the level of contest, and we're going to touch on that briefly. They brief and verify contestants' eligibility at the contest. They brief and manage the ballot counters of how they want to compile the votes into the counter tally, and then how they want to report them out. They manage the judging process, and they manage protests. All of that is identified in the briefing checklist for the chief judge, but it's also identified in the organizing the contest. So I'm going over this so you actually know what's there, not that you get all the detail here. In a club is supposed to have at least 5 judges. Whether they do or don't, you know what? TI is not going to send the police to shut them down. But at an area, you have to have at least 5 judges. It starts with how many areas do you have? So if you only have 4 areas, you must have a judge from each area in your contest.
Excuse me, Solazar.
From each club in your area, rather.
Thank you.
Was that's the correction you were going to give me, right?
Yes, that was it.
You must have, if you only have 4 clubs, you must have a judge from each club. If you can't get a judge from each club, then you can look at doubling up. In other words, 2 from each of the clubs there. Let's say 3 of your clubs send you judges. Get 2 from those 3 clubs. If all 4 clubs send you 1 judge, try to get 2 from all 4 clubs. If you can't get a 5th judge from your area balanced across all clubs, then seek some support from your area director to get someone from another area. That's all. Just fill in. Don't panic over it. Same thing with divisions. Divisions go with number of areas. So if a division has 7 areas and no division in this district has 7 areas, a division has 7 areas, they would get a judge from each area. They can do the same thing. You can double up. If you have 4 areas, you could double up and get 2 from each area. You could also try to get some folks from the rest of the district from
No,
other
I'm about to
divisions,
say.
other areas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you saying something, Mario?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but the same question I wanted to ask was asked in the chat. So those 5 judges in club and area, does it include the tiebreak? Is it 5 + 1, 5 + 1 tiebreaking
No, it
judge?
has
or
nothing to
we
do
did
with has nothing to do with the tiebreaker. This is voting judges.
only? Okay.
Yeah, tiebreaker does not count as one of the voting judges. Now, the other thing is showed on that slide that I cut back from. It shows 7 for the district. Now, in our district, we have 6 divisions. We always go for 9 judges or more. We try to get multiple. 12 judges or more. We try to get multiple from each division. So 2 from each division. So that's where we start. It's the only way we can have 7 or above. It's the only way we can have it equitably. So keep that in mind and try not to, and never. I participated in an evaluation contest many moons ago when I still had energy and youth. And the 5 judges in the area contest all came from one club. The test speaker all came from one club. And the other evaluation contestant came from the same club. It's probably obvious that I didn't win, whether I should have or not. But you don't ever want to do that. There's obviously going to be a bias. Not that people have an intentional bias, but there's always going to be a bias. So the tiebreaker judge is ideally not a member of your club, area, or division, and they're not considered a voting judge. By the way, did I mention that the tie-breaking judge is not a voting judge? I don't know if I.
Yeah, you also mentioned they're
I
not
know.
allowed to protest.
Yeah, I mentioned it a bunch of times, Mario. I know. But also try to get somebody from outside of, if it's a club, fine, but outside of your area, outside of your division. We do actually at district try to get them even from outside our district, from neighboring districts. So we do try to do that. Remember that you want someone who has a different point of view, and the distinction between them and a regular judge we'll touch on in a minute. All judges, including the tiebreaker, must complete a certification of eligibility and code of ethics. Now notice, it talks about the name of a contest up here. This is something for the contest chair to make sure the chief judge knows. They may know it, but you don't. You need one of these for each contest. You can't fill out one and say, I want to do evaluation and humorous. This is a fillable form, but you can only fill it for each contest individually. So, and to be a judge, here's where it talks about an area, division, or district, be a paid member for 6 months, have completed a minimum of 6 speech. Now, this remember is the judge. They haven't changed this form yet, but they could still have 6 speech projects in the competent communication manual or completion of levels 1 and 2 of any path and pathways. That's for judges. They haven't changed it yet. These are the same rules. Hopefully they'll get those in concert with what they do for the international. And then we don't have to talk about international quarterfinals and semifinals because that's above it. Now, also, we'll touch on that. They're signing that they'll avoid bias. They won't time the speeches. They're not to consider under or overtime. They are simply there to judge the speech as presented and they refrain from any criticism of the contest or the contestants as part of that. And they're not a member of the same club as any contestant when judging at the division, district, or above levels. Now, at area, it doesn't matter. They can be a member of a club of a contestant. But as you can see, at division and district, they can't be the same member of a club. So pay attention to that. It's always a challenge at a division level sometimes to get judges from clubs that don't have a contestant. Because sometimes they don't even want to come to the contest. But we're looking for that. We're specifically driving for that.
You know what? I was asked last year by my division, whatchamacallit, director. Can you? We need a lot of judges. Can you do a judge? Can you be a judge? It was for a division contest where a couple of contestants were from my club, and I was asked by the division director, "Hey, can you be a judge?" And I
Yeah,
had contestants from my club.
And by the rules, you should not have been a judge. That's all I can say, you know, but
And I didn't take the role, and I declined it because it's not because of that, because I was tired from contests, but I guess I did the right thing.
yeah, you definitely did. And also keep in mind for contest chairs, keep in mind planning going forward that you want to know every club that judges in. Doesn't matter for anything else. It's also ideal at division and district level that the chief judge is not a member of the club of any contestants, if you can actually do that. But you want to know that every club a judge is in, because my home club might be club 1, you know, and this contestant is from club 2, but I'm also a member of club 2. So you want to make sure that I'm not slipping in. Now, what I have done in contest 2 is switch judges, you know. So Philip and Mario belong to the same club as Alex. Alex is competing in evaluation, but they don't have a contestant from Alex's club in international, so they can be a judge in international. So I also switch judges based on that if you need to. So keep that in mind.
So as long as they don't clash, as long as they don't clash in the same contest division and above, like judges and contestants don't that are not that are in the same club, they don't meet in the same contest division level or above, it's cool.
That's correct. That's correct. So remember, when you're doing a contest at an area or division level, you're actually doing an event that has 2 contests in it. You're going to have an evaluation and you're going to have an international speech. So just what you said, Mario, as long as a judge does not belong to a club of a contestant in the international or a contestant in the evaluation, and they don't judge in those contests, or they judge in the contest where they're not in the same club, they're good. I may have said that in a confusing way, but hopefully the point got across. Now, the tiebreaker judge, for those who know this, the tiebreaker judge lists every contestant top to bottom. So other judges list the top 3. These are my top 3. Tiebreaker judge lists everybody. The purpose of that is that you never know where the tie is. And the way a tiebreaker ballot is used, and I'm sharing this because the contest chairs need to understand, is that you're doing it by the first one you reach. So Philip and Mario are tied for first place. You always start with the highest tie. So if you have a tie at first and a tie at third, from the chief judge's perspective, you start with the highest tie because it's going to waterfall down, potentially. So Philip and Mario are tied for first place by the regular voting judges. On the tiebreaker judges ballot, it doesn't matter where their names are. It only matters whose name comes first. So the tie is broken. So let's say Mario is in 3rd place and Philip's in 4th place on this thing. I love you both, so I'm just using that as an example. That would mean that the minute I hit Mario's name, he's 1st place. Philip's 2nd place. Now I have to look at 2nd and 3rd and how things have shifted as a result of that. So that's the only reason. You don't add points the way you do with normal judging. And sometimes chief judges don't know how to use their tiebreaker ballot. So you want to also make sure it's something you review with your chief judge and that they're familiar. Contest Toastmaster, be certain he or she can read. And that is sheer sarcasm, because very often after script reviews, I've seen Toastmasters change the script in ways that changed it. Let me give you an example. For an evaluation contest, you only mention the name of the evaluator, the evaluation contestant, twice. You don't say contestant 1, Philip Plath, contestant 1. You don't do that. The script's not written to say that. It says, our first contestant, Philip Plath. That's it. You also don't say contestant number 2, Mario Backup, because that's the first one I hit, Mario. You don't say contestant number 2. You don't list contestant numbers. First contestant. After that, it's next contestant. After that, it's next contestant. After that, it's next contestant. So don't let that type of variance happen. That comes from the rule book. So the contest is not about the Toastmaster, it's about the contestants. So everything we're doing in the contest is about trying to make it smoother for the contestants. I'm not sure about that, Mario. We'll get to that in a little bit. And the contestant interview is about getting to know the contestants. So learn how to pronounce their names and their speech titles. That comes up during the dry run. We want to make sure that we don't go into the contest and I suddenly say Alex Sandovalli, and that's not right. I should have known how to say Alex Sandoval right before that contest started. And be flexible. The contest chair is the decider on last minute changes. You decide what happens. So from a contest perspective, it's your contest. These people are working for you. Ballot counters, you need 3. Try to get 3. 2, never less than 2, but try to get 3. Timers, you must have 2. I've seen people go into area contests and division contests with 1 timer. Now, some of you have attended some of the other sessions. Does anyone want to offer why you have 2 timers?
You have one does the timing lights, other submits the official results, which is the main timer, and you also sometimes need a timer for the sergeant at arms in the evaluation breaker room.
No, that's not bad, but that's not it.
Timing device breakdown?
Well, 1 is timing device breakdown, absolutely. That's absolutely why. So both timers should be timing and changing their backgrounds at the same time. 1 is visible, 1 has their video off, it's not visible. If there's a breakdown of timer 1, they just switch videos. Timer 2 now is showing on the screen. But the other reason is because of variance in timing and human reaction. Chirag starts speaking, and I'm timing him, and I say his evaluation is 3 minutes and 31 seconds. Philip's timing him, and he says his evaluation is 3 minutes and 29 seconds. Now, I, as chief judge, I give the benefit of the doubt based on the fact I have 1 timer that said he was in time and 1 that said he was out. So you also want the 2 timers to compare that. You also want 2 timers in case both of them say he was 3 minutes and 31 seconds. You definitively know he was over time. So that's why you want the 2nd timer. It's a validation of the first. So primary is to primary and backup in case 1 breaks down. 2nd is you want a validation of all the times.
So Lazar?
So that means you confirm both times. So you pretty much get 2 timer sheets.
Yes, as a chief judge, I always get 2 timer sheets. Philip, you had a question.
Yeah, and this might be the right time for it. I've actually seen this at contests, and because I've saw it once, I'll never forget it, and I'll never not remind my timers of this. that we're supposed to go with a gesture or a first vocalization. And I've seen timers start their clock when a speaker is taking that moment and letting in one last big breath and one last big exhalation before he or she speaks. And I know that the clock is ticking. And so now when I'm in a position to remind those timers, do not start your clock, because a lot of these speakers have their speeches at 7:29. They know exactly what they're doing, right? And you're going to ruin it for them if they come in at 7:35 and they thought, no, there's no way that's coming in at 7:35. So it's just something to watch out for if you haven't seen that, if you haven't had a speaker take a real pause after an introduction as a timer, maybe you're not ready for that.
That's an excellent point, Philip, and it's also something as contest chair you could stress. Remember, it's a gesture toward the audience. So if I'm standing there and I haven't gestured toward the audience, or I haven't made a move like I'm getting ready to start, don't start the timing. But it also helps to have the 2 timers for that very reason. All right. These are the tally sheets and the timer sheets that come from Toastmasters. I just include them there. Now, I always have my timers just send me an email. I send them an email at the start of the contest with the contestants in speaking order for each contest. All they have to do is do a reply and put the times in next to each name, send it back to me. I also ask them to make an annotation of O or U next to a time if it's over or under, so that I really don't look at any time except over and under. This is a copy of the spreadsheet that's available for the electronic tally that we have. This one is for the evaluation. It automatically tallies up from the contestant when you say their points. Remember, first place is 3 points, 2 points, 1 point. I always have one ballot counter read off the judge's result. I have another ballot counter enter it into the tally, and then I observe the tally to make sure that they entered, when Philip said Mario was first in this contest, that he's getting 3 points based on the judge's name here. He gets 3 points. This spreadsheet automatically tallies the results down here. Then as chief judge, I'm only doing 2 things. I'm only actually paying attention to if they're over or under time, or if there's a tie. And that's all we do from here. This does it all for me. This is a wonderful tool, and I encourage you to look at it and use it and make it available to your chief judge and your ballot counters. Sergeant at Arms, we want to start on time, announce the contest attendance rules, which is stay muted, keep your videos off unless we ask you to put them on, because we don't want you to be a distraction for the contestants, and to accompany contestants to breakout rooms when used, which they are for table topics and evaluation. Now, in the Organize the Online Speech Contest document, it talks about how they do the management of the time. So, where we recommend the Sergeant at Arms times, but one of the timers also times the 5 minutes after the test speaker has spoken for the interview process. And then how the tech chair would notify the Sergeant at Arms in the room, sending contestant 1. So the only one who could be talking about contestant 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 should be the tech chair in the chat to the Sergeant at Arms in the breakout room. This is where you do your biggest work prior to the contest. You let your Toastmaster be the point of contact for the contestants, help them build the information packets, including a judging ballot. Let the contestants know what they're being judged on. The Toastmaster collects bios and eligibility forms and provides the eligibility forms to the chief judge, keeping the bios. The chief judge is the point of contact for the judges, ballot counters, and timers. He or she collects the judge eligibility forms, sends the rule book and ballots, sets up the judging process, the ballot counting, and the collection of timing, and let the chief judge find the tiebreaker judge. That way no one else knows except the chief judge. If you find it for him or her, then you know as well. It's just good to have someone out there. This is the contest planning spreadsheet. This one is evaluation. The next one is international. The only difference is that the evaluation has the test speaker here. International does not. Now, it's good as a contest chair to work with your area director, get a test speaker from outside your area, outside your division, and also make sure you talk with your test speaker. I had a test speaker at a division contest. We spoke. He understood it was a 5 to 7 minute speech. He came back and said, could he speak for 15? And I said, no, it's a 5 to 7 minute speech and the contest is timed, so we need you. He came to the contest. He spoke for 15 minutes. I was literally in the back of the room going, he went on. And then he came up later and said, I'm really sorry. I said, no, you're not. You planned that. Don't tell me you're sorry. But what I'm really saying is make sure your test speaker understands that it's 5 to 7 minutes. Your event is timed and it's everybody else's time. In this case, this guy just really wanted to sell his book. So bad choice on my part. But this is where you fill in their names, the clubs they belong to, which you're mostly interested about for judges, as well as your contestants. Division and area, email, cell phone, any notes or comments you need to have. This is a contest only function for the contest chair. You can share this with your Toastmasters chief judge, but this is only really for the contest chair planning. You're not sharing it with everyone else. Ballot counters don't need to see it. Timers don't need to see it. The three primary people that may have access: chief judge, Toastmaster, contest chair.
And the tech team, in case you have like renaming, like if you use eval shortcuts in front of their names, the text chair can also have that when you're admitting people in, to have an overview.
No, you actually would do that. You would do that from your registration. Remember. So for instance, the tech chair is going to know who the judges are. They have to. They have to know. So the chief judge always provides the judges' names to the tech chair, because they have to have that. And the contestants have to be provided to the tech chair well in advance. But for everybody else, it's based on your registration.
No, I'm saying I'm saying because you have to know whom to put in which breakout room. Is the tech chair.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's only one breakout room for contestants, and there's one breakout room for judges. The tech chair is told the judges and ballot counters, and they know who the timers are because they're at the dry runs prior to the contest. And the contestant is only for the evaluation for the dry run. The tech chair does not need to have access to this, though, to be told that information. They just need to be provided that information. For instance, the tech chair does not need to know the email or phone number or any other info or contact or club number of a contestant. They just need to know the contestant name. Since we also do renaming of contestants, they will know EV1 is evaluator 1, EV2 is evaluator 2. So they also have that information. It makes it easier to move people into the breakout rooms. The ones that are more challenging are judges. Ballot counters are BC1, BC2, so they have them, and they know the chief judge. So that they don't need access to this sheet is all I'm trying to say. And Mario, if you do a contest and you use this sheet and you give access to your tech chair, so be it.
No, I've been given it from the contest chair as a tech chair, so it was vice versa.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I just think they might be being a little lazy. That's all, but that's okay. It doesn't hurt anything. It just has information the tech chair doesn't need. So, script review with the sergeant at arms, Toastmaster, chief judge, and timers needs to be done in advance of the dry runs. And you need to look at this for how you may, in turn, want to change some of the logistical guidance in your script. How do you manage contestant screen shares? How to mute, unmute contestants? Now, you could have that contestants are muted or unmuted by your tech chair, The tech chair's got to be on that, and if they're on that, that's good. If they're not on that, then they might have to allow unmuting. If they're allowing unmuting of people in the contest, then you have to pay more attention to people who might unmute themselves that aren't contestants. So you've got to balance your things of how you want to manage. You need to know how the primary and backup timer will shift. This is pre-planning information. How will the contest team communicate during the contest? Are they going to use text? Naturally, everyone should be asked to stay out of chat except for the contest team, who will chat to each other individually. But that doesn't mean other people won't get into the chat. So a lot of contest information, I always prefer to do it through text, and I have everybody's cell phone number for that purpose. That's my preference. I also recommend they put it on vibrate, or just keep the volume down real low if they have a notification when they get a text. How are you going to manage contestant briefings to allow, not briefings, this should be contestant interviews, to allow time for ballots to be tallied? Now, when you're doing a 2-contest event where you have evaluation first and international second, it doesn't really matter for the interview of the evaluation, because you're going to go to a break or an intermission, or you may plan a break or intermission. So you don't have to worry that those are all tallied and come back. But for the international, you do. You need to make sure they're tallied before you stop the interview. So there's a process that we describe in organizing an online speech that I'll leave there because it has more detail of how you may want to plan for that. But you want to pre-plan that with the chief judge and the Toastmaster, and let the tech chair and sergeant at arms know. Everybody needs to be aware of how to continue to manage the event. How are you going to handle tech failures and protests? Protests, of course, are sent to the chief judge. They do say in the rule book to send it to the contest chair. As a chief judge, I always prefer it comes directly to me, so I don't get it from another party. I get it from the person doing the protest. Then, how do you move people out? How do you notify the Toastmaster or the tech chair or whatever else? How do you move them out? Sometimes the protest is handled after all contestants have spoken, so that you don't disrupt the contest flow, which is helpful. But you still have to talk about how you want to manage that process. How are winners reported to the contest chair and awarding dignitary? Now, very often, because once again, we said area directors and division directors should not be the contest chair. Sometimes they're the awarding dignitary, though, at the contest. However, very often, the division director might be the awarding dignitary at an area contest, or the program quality director might be the awarding dignitary at a division contest. So it's always been my preference that the contest chair is notified of the results, that the awarding dignitary is notified of the results, and who creates the winner certificates. They need to be notified of the results. Sometimes the tech chair or backup tech chair does that. Sometimes the contest chair does that. Sometimes there's somebody totally different. Now, participation certificates you can prepare in advance. That's just participation. You can have those to even display. I got done interviewing Philip for his speech and, saying, here's your participation certificate. We'll put it in the mail to you, the email to you. But the winner certificates are prepared on the spot. So you want to, in your pre-planning with this group of people, your sergeant at arms, your Toastmaster, your chief judge, and timer, you want to review these elements. You want to determine, if you haven't already, what your contest day is. Is it going to be a double contest? That means evaluation and international. You need at least 3 hours. If you're planning less than 3 hours, you're playing craps with a set of loaded dice. Pretty much go for 3 hours. Generally, that gives you more than enough time, and everyone's happy if you end early. Is it day? Is it night? What works best for your area or your division? Schedule your contestant dry run. You need your tech chair, your sergeant at arms, your Toastmaster, your timers, your chief judge, that's chief judge, and of course the contestants. Then you need to schedule your functionary. dry runs with the judges, the ballot counters, sergeant at arms, and tech chairs. You also want the timers there as well, but that's very briefly. Don't schedule these at the same time. Don't do this thing like, oh, well, when they show up, we'll put them in different breakout rooms. No, do the contestant one, do the judge one, the judge and functionary. You can do them the same day, but make sure you give a good break to get everybody out of the room, regardless of who was there first. Get them out of the room, except for the people who need to be there. And remember, who creates participation and winner certificates? I keep putting it in there because people forget about that till they get right up to it. And who creates the contest program? You need to get all of that pre-planned.
I've been a share master where this was before I was the Zoom master for division contest, where you prepare the certificates of participation in the top 3 winners, and you have to have your timing spot on when you're called for 3rd and 2nd. And actually, the chair missed called like for 1st place, but they got the wrong name, and I just stopped sharing and waited until the chief judge stepped in and said, no, change the name to the right one. So
okay.
it was just a mispronunciation. But when you're sharing your screen and the chair messes up the name, and you're like, oh, did I put it wrong or did the chair mess up? So
now what I've done in the past, and I'm going to mention this now, is that I've prepared 1st, 2nd, and 3rd certificates for each contestant. So when the results came in, it was strictly a matter of, I had a folder with each person's name. It's strictly a matter of pulling the pre-prepared certificate from everybody. So nobody had to actually do one up. They were all done in advance, which is a little similar to what Mario was talking about. I find
Yeah,
that works best for me. It doesn't work the best for everybody. Some people prefer to do them, but it has the least time lag of waiting for anything as a result. So as I would do it as chief judge, I would have them there. I would provide the certificates to the tech chair, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, and do them. Now, going back to what Mario said, if the name is miscalled, it is up to the chief judge to point that out at the time it's miscalled. So if I say that Alex was 2nd when it was really Mariana, and the chief judge does not interrupt it, guess what? Alex is 2nd. If that's what's showing, Alex is 2nd. So the chief judge only intercedes if they've called the wrong name or displayed the wrong certificate. Other than that, they don't. So I just want to share that. We had a contest actually in the fall where the contestant that was named as the winner, after the contest, 2 days later, received an email saying, oh, we tallied incorrectly. You're not the winner. Well, I protested. I don't know the people, but I protested that to district because that's not legal. So if you don't tally correctly and you give the results to the wrong person and you announce it and the contest ends, that's the winner. That's how it goes.
And was that what happened when you protested, Salazar?
Well, I protested the district not as a contest protest. It was brought to my attention and I gave my information to district. District, in their case, chose to take action in their own way. So I'm not going to go there. But I wanted to bring it up because after a contest is over, you don't retally. Chief judge is supposed to actually destroy all ballots at that time, not keep any. So it doesn't matter if for instance, for whatever reason, if the chief judge and ballot counters missed a judge's ballot, let's just say that happens. The contest is awarded, the winners are announced, and then they say, oh my God, we missed this ballot. That would change everything. It's too late. It's too late. So when I say I protested, I didn't protest at the contest. I gave district my information that the winner as announced should stand, not the person that they changed it to. That was what I was getting to. Chirag, you have a question?
Yeah, so when you say, is it only if you mistally the results, or is if you just incorrectly say the name as well? Let's say instead
Well,
of
incorrectly say the name, if you could see it right there, that can be pointed out, that can be
Okay.
pointed out. It's a mispronunciation. But let's say in my case where I do pre-prepared forms, and let's say you're one, Philip second, Mario's third. And some reason I reversed them. Mario's first, Philip's still second, so you're still good, Philip, and then you're third. But the
Yeah.
ballot counters and chief judge both have the right to interrupt and say, no, Mario is not first, and stop it right there, and then get the right certificates or the right announcement of winners in place.
Okay. But if it nobody stops and if it keeps going even without correcting, you just said the wrong name, and even the ballots are kind of showing in the right, who
Yeah.
the true winner is. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, mispronunciation. I think most people would catch that, although the
Yeah.
chief judge should or ballot counter should still
Right.
intercede and say, no, that's the wrong name. You've mispronounced the
Okay.
name.
Yeah. Okay.
Salazar, who are the other people that can file that can call for wrongfully called results besides the chief judge? Was it the bell counters or the
Chief
timers?
judge and ballot counters can actually
Yeah, okay.
interrupt an incorrect announcement. However, if it's the one that Chirag was talking about, where it's just a mispronunciation or you miscall what's on the screen, pretty much anybody, even the contest chair, is going to jump in and say, "Hey, wait a minute, that's Philip's name up there. It's not Mariana's. That type of thing. That's okay." But what we're talking about is when the order is actually misidentified of first, second, and third. That's the chief judge and the ballot counters that can do that. However, I'm going to say this, but this is not by TI rules. If the contest chair who knows the results sees that, they too should intercede. Don't say, "Oh, I'm waiting. Chief judge didn't say anything, so I didn't." It's like, yeah, come on. Let's get the right people recognized. All right. So the script review is important that you get those things we touched on, the logistical things, in your script so your primary members know how they flow. Do a morning setup on the contest with the functionaries to make sure they're present. Some people don't do that. 30 to 45 minutes, have them show up. Do another audio and video check with them. I have contestants show up at dry runs without the audio and video that they're going to use. Oh, this is not the computer I'm going to use. I'm going to use a different one. Oh, I'm not going to be in this spot. I'm going to be in a different place. Do another check. Ensure their present technology is working. Start on time. Advise everyone to stay out of the chat. And the SAA will introduce the area or division director, who will introduce the dignitaries. Very often what happens is the SAA can introduce the contest chair, who can introduce the area division director, or area and division director, who will introduce the contest chair. Either way, you guys work that out based on what feels most comfortable for you. The contest chair can also do the dignitaries, and that comes from the protocol list. Post the program in the chat room at the start of the contest. I can't tell you how many contests I go to, and the contest chair or even the sergeant at arms saying this program will be posted, and it kind of shows up 10 minutes later. Get the program posted there right away. You're doing 2 contests, you put evaluation in there because it's the first, you just put evaluation in there. You don't need both. You do, after the break, you do international, 1 contest at a time. Contestants interviewed do allow time for them to be tallied, but 2 contests back to back, evaluation doesn't need to wait for the tally complete to conclude the interview. And we mentioned this, chief judge should report results to person doing the certificates, contest chair, dignitary announcing the results. The contest chair or chief judge should notify the Toastmaster when results are reported. Results are reported in third, second, first order, but let me get back to notifying the Toastmaster. One of the recommendations given here, and it happens poorly almost each and every time. Work this out with your Toastmaster. I'm your Toastmaster, and I've now prepared 3 questions for each of my contestants. Now I prepare a second set of questions. What's the second set for? In case I need to ask you more questions. So I start with my contestants. I've asked everybody their 3 questions. I come back around because I haven't been told the results are in. Come back to Chirac and say, now I'm going to ask him one of my next set of questions. I ask him that one. Then I go to Philip and suddenly somebody tells me results are in. I say, oh, okay, we're done with the interviews. No, you're not. Every contestant gets to be asked that question that was just asked to Chirac. One more time, you just take that one. That's why you do one question at a time on each round. You ask every contestant that same question. You don't cut it off just because the results are now in. Then, after each question, contestant is answered, you cut it off. So be kind. Third, second, first. Those are your reports, and I always report them out that way. So I don't say to people, well, here we go. I don't say to people that here's the first place, here's this. I report them out as chief judge, third, second, first. So try to make it very clear to everybody that's how we're going to announce them. If there's a time disqualification, the fact that there is a time disqualification is announced, not the name of the contestant. Now, I saw this written. Results are not announced by the chief judge. The chief judge doesn't come in and say, hey, the winners are. It's not their role. Also, disqualified contestants are notified by the contest chair, not the chief judge. However, sometimes the chief judge will do it because the contest chair doesn't want to. Who's a disqualified contestant? Time disqualification, they would be told. But protests are not announced as disqualified contestants. I saw somebody do this. There was a protest was upheld and said, well, we had one contestant disqualified by protest. We don't announce protests as disqualified, only time disqualification. The protested contestant, I always choose as a chief judge to talk to them myself so they can understand any reasoning that went into the disqualification. Contest chair or chief judge prepares the notification to be sent to the next contest. Participants should be completed and sent to all functionary and contestants. These are your resources once again, and this includes guidelines on how to conduct and promote a contest, organizing the contest, contest planning template spreadsheet, speech contest eligibility checker link, which is a link, Toastmaster and contestant briefing checklist, separate checklist for the Toastmaster to brief the contest, separate checklist for the chief judge to brief the contest. As a contest chair, be familiar with them. Counters tally, timers record sheet, contest certificates, and Raji, our PQD, is going to put up Google Form judges ballots that you could just use and not have to create yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our race.
I have 2 things about is it better to say that there was only a disqualification without naming a timing or protest to avoid people thinking, oh, there was a protest?
You don't do disqualifications for protest at all. You do announce there was a time disqualification. That's all you say. There was one disqualification.
I think it would be better to just say there was a disqualification without the timing because
no, you do announce that there was or was not time disqualifications.
You have to use the word timing.
You use the word time. Yes, you do.
Okay.
It's
and what about
go ahead.
What about the contest winners? Actually, no, I forgot my question, so never mind.
Yeah, you do use the words time disqualification because if there are none, you actually announce there were no time disqualifications. You know, it's a very specific part of the contest rules that you do touch on. So that's why you use it. Are you okay with that, Mario? You understand or?
Yeah, I was just trying to avoid timing so people don't know what kind of a disqualification it was, but you actually have to announce it because
But time is the only disqualification you announce. It's the only one you announce. You don't mention any other disqualification. Chirag, yes, sir. Your hand is up.
Yeah, so just to get a sense of what the contest day looks like. So we have a 3-hour contest from 9 to 12 on a Saturday. So what is the, the first contest will take an hour, and I mean, can you give like a breakdown of how the times would look like on average?
Sure. Well, first thing that happens is you need to have your functionaries and your contestants show up at least a 30-minute or before that 9 o'clock by 8:30.
Okay.
Put them in breakout rooms. You actually do that with the contestants to have them rename themselves, to check their audio and video, make sure they're all here and all ready. Second thing is with the chief judge, the judges and ballot counters, you make sure they're all ready. Ballot counters rename themselves, judges are anonymous, but you check everything and go over the process flow to make sure you're there. So that way, when you start down your contest at 9, you know that you have your primary folks in-house. Now, I have, if a contestant is not there, let's say at 8:30, and they're not there at 9, do you know when they get disqualified?
No, I don't know.
That's why I kind of asked the question, bring it out.
Okay.
According to the rule book, they're disqualified at the start of the contest. Now, I want to point out, the evaluation contest is not starting at 9. Your event is starting at 9.
Right.
Let's say everything you go through, it takes about 15 minutes. Philip's called up as Toastmaster for the evaluation contest. The minute he starts his contest, if I'm not there as the evaluator, he will announce, generally as chief judge, I would notify him, or I can't notify him that I'm not there if I'm chief judge, but I would notify him that John Smith is not here, so he will not be competing. So he would say John Smith will not be competing today. That's all he says.
I see.
Yes, Phil.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me, more to the point, when you talk about the beginning of the event, would that actually be the SAA though?
No, that's the
because that's
contest
the
chair.
event. It's not the contest. The Toastmaster starts the contest.
Right.
So it's the other thing. So I ask people to
Okay.
show up at 8:30. Let's say an international speech contestant doesn't show up till 10, and we haven't started the international speech contest yet. They're actually not disqualified until that international speech contest Toastmaster is up in front of the people. So be very careful about when you disqualify them, just to let you know. Now, going back to your timing thing. So you're going to have the introduction and your rules for the room. You're going to tell everybody, stay muted, keep your video off, stay out of the chat, you know where your bathroom is, things like that. Let's say you introduce your dignitary. Let's say it's your area director or division director, or actually it's your contest at the area level. So you're the dignitary. You would introduce the contest chair, who may have some preliminary and then introduces the Toastmaster, or vice versa. You may have them do the preliminary. They introduce you to do the dignitaries. You give it back to them. Then they introduce the Toastmaster. So now you're probably about 10 to 15 minutes in at maximum, Then it depends on how many contestants you have. So the Toastmaster is going to explain the rules of the contest and the contest flow. He or she is going to explain how they introduce contestants, just like we talked about earlier. I'm going to say Mariana Jones, that's it. So they'll go through all of that. Then they'll go through the contest. Now, each evaluation contestant, let's talk. You're going to have a 5 to 7 minute speech. It might take 7:30. You do not introduce the test speaker by anything other than a contest introduction. What I mean by that, Philip's my test speaker. Philip Plath, why I chose to be here, Philip Plath. You don't give your evaluation contestants any information about them. So I'd say he's a 7-minute 30 speech. So with introduction and little time after that, I give him 8 minutes timing in my mind when I'm planning my schedule.
Yeah.
Then we have a 5-minute interview, and I give 5 minutes for that. I give an extra minute just for the moving back and forth of the contestants into the breakout room and contestant one coming back. So I plan that's another 6 minutes. Then because each contestant is 3 minutes and 30 seconds maximum, I plan them out at 4 minutes each. You
Okay.
know, that doesn't
Right.
mean they take all that time. They might give a 2-minute evaluation, still qualify.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but I start planning them out that way based on contestants. Now, let's say you have 3 evaluation contestants, and I just told you to have a 3-hour contest, and you have 2 international speech contestants. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? You're going to wrap up early. There's no
Okay.
question about it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
your international contestants are going to have one hell of an interview though, because there still needs time to tally those ballots. But you're going to wrap up early, and everybody's going to go home happy. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you start getting 6 or 7 contestants per contest, it stretches out, your 3 hours. So you need to really take a look at, if I have 6 contestants in evaluation, 6 contestants in international, like international speech, 7 minutes, 30 seconds, I give them 8 minutes in my mind.
Yeah.
Each contestant is 8 minutes, just to plan it out.
Yeah.
Chief judge is about 10 minutes maximum. If the chief judge is taking more than 10 minutes, they're taking too long. But if I give them
Yeah.
5 minutes and they take longer, I've underestimated the time. So,
Yeah.
that's how I do it. So
I
that's
have
how I
a
plan it.
question.
I'm sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead, Chirac.
No, go ahead, Salazar. I'll interject when
Oh,
you
it was
finish.
you, Mario. I thought Chirac was saying something. I'm sorry, Mario.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
that's very helpful. Yeah. Thanks.
Go ahead, Mario.
I was once a chief judge where one of the judges would keep falling out of the main room, like keep falling out of the contest. And I was with the bell counters, and we took 15 minutes because we were waiting for that one judge's results. And the interview went into a break. They came back and continued the interview, and we were still waiting for that judge. And we went through the results 3 times. So we, because the bell counter told me, it would be a fair trial if we had all the judges' results. So we waited for that judge, and the judge dropped out 3 times. Should I have waited for the judge or just disregarded him and continued with
No, I
what we
would
had?
I mean, first place, I agree with the ballot counter that you want all the judges. I would have disregarded that judge in that case. There's obviously some kind of a technical issue with the connection. And one of the things you want to look at for your primary functionaries, and you can share this with your judges as well, they should not be using a phone for their connection. They should be using at least a laptop, if not a desktop. It's a much more stable connection. And so if they're using a phone, it's going to create technical issues. It could create technical issues. So the answer is, I had that at one contest. Judge absolutely disappeared. We tallied them. I reached out to the judge. I reached out to him by text. No response. We finished the tally. We moved on.
So yeah, not to drag it out, because then you lose the energy in the main room.
Right. And that's a part of it. And remember, we said it's for the contestants. So this is why we want the contest chairs to do this pre-planning, to talk through these things, because that was an excellent point to bring up. We want to talk through these things to say, here's how we're going to handle it. We're not going to spend 15 minutes waiting for a judge to show up. So I was in a physical contest where this one guy backed out of judging, and then he got all these other people to judge. And I was the chief judge. I really didn't know how many judges I had. I think I had 16 or 18 or something like that. And I didn't know who half of them were. It's like, even though I did the briefing and the judging, I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know if they were even there. But so I counted my ballots, and I had what I thought was the appropriate number of ballots with my ballot count. We left the room. There was still a woman in there finishing her form. Yeah. They came running back with her ballot. That was early on in my career, but I'm not going to wait for a judge who's too slow. We got to move the contest along.
Yeah, I recently, like a couple of months ago, was a judge, and the division contest chair had 4 judges. They were missing another 4, so I arranged via WhatsApp groups that have over 100 members. Toastmasters, I arranged 4 more judges, and then she asks for a tie-breaking judge, and I made sure all the judges contacted her via email. And then after the contest, one of the judges that could have been a tie-breaking judge is like, "Can you please send me the email?" And I'm like, "I already connected you guys from that point on. I don't care what happens. The communication has been sent. If the chief judge didn't see the email, not my problem." And I didn't even respond to this judge like, "Can you please send me the link, the Zoom link?" I'm like, "I sent you the connection. Here's the judge for XYZ. There's the recording. Like, these are all the eligibility forms you have." That's all from me. I mean, I went out of goodwill, out of goodwill and good intention. Here's 4 judges because you can easily acquire from those 2 groups, but I didn't have to, right? And then she's asking for the tie-breaking judge. You had the email. Sorry.
Well, also, I want to mention that I did put the organizing an online contest document in the chat. I put the slides in the chat, and I also put the link to the contest resources. So I'm going to put my email. If anybody walks away from here and doesn't have that information or needs to follow up, just let me know. I'll send you the link. Everything should be in there, but I do recommend you kind of read this document as a contest chair, get familiar with it, and use it to work with your team. And the briefing checklists are there for your Toastmaster and Chief Judge. The scripts are there. Make sure you review the scripts with your team. Go through it so you all know the contest flow before the dry run. You don't need to review it with the contestants. You don't need to review it with judges or functionaries. Just do it before the dry run. And the timer should be part of that script review. So
Okay.
any final questions? Let's see.
Another one.
Julie, we still have a lady here. Mariana left. Any final
Yeah.
questions, lady and gentlemen?
I have a
protests regarding referring to another another speaker in the contest, like for international. You're not allowed to refer to another speaker, otherwise you're automatically disqualified. Do you in that case mention that there was a disqualification or not?
No. You only mention time disqualifications. Only time.
Even if it's the originality 25%, you don't mention it.
Only time.
Only time. Got it.
So only
Something
time.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And what's the actual difference between a dry run and a briefing? Dry run is like what, a simulation of
Dry
the
run
contest?
is kind of a briefing. You walk the contestants. You'll check audio and video. You'll walk the contestants through the process. You'll allow them to be on screen. We recommend you spotlight the contestant and you spotlight the timer right there on screen. You let them get that process so they're familiar with it. And it talks about that in here. And let each of them go through the process and how they're introduced. Also, it's a good time to tell them to keep their mouths shut, especially the evaluators, when they get back into the room. Until, if I'm Toastmaster, I haven't called your name yet. Keep your mouth shut. Don't say, "What do I do? Do I start? Do I do?" That's what the dry run is for, to tell them, here's what's happened. Don't speak. We're in the moment of silence or the minute of silence. Don't speak until I call on you. And so they're familiar with the process and more comfortable with it. Same thing for the international contestants. You go through the same type of process. The dry run with the judges and ballot counters, etc., is also to review the timing of the process. Here's what I want you to do at the end of the 2 minutes of silence. I want you to notify me this way of your results. You send it to me and the ballot counters, and the ballot counters work with me to make sure we get everybody's and what happens next. I also explain to them what happens for a protest. I let contestants know what happens for a protest. Okay, any additional questions?
So Salazar, I
And-
just wanted
Hold
a
on,
tip.
Mario, go ahead, Shirak.
No. Chirac has been waiting long enough. Chirac,
Yeah,
go
that's what I
ahead.
said. I wanted Shirak to go.
Yeah, so just a tip from you. Let's say, we have a tendency to panic, right? Like, let's say we are doing it for the first time and things kind of, there's a meltdown, for example, both the timers disappear or like, something really crazy happens. How do you manage it like with a straight face? Like, do you have any tips of how to manage not to panic, basically? Like,
Well, first thing I'm going to suggest is that don't try not to panic, even if you feel the panic inside. If you act like you're in control, so let's say both timers disappear.
yeah,
All you really need to do is your contest chair or your the chief judge notices the timers have disappeared. The chief judge or contest chair should stop the contest. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a brief pause for a technical issue. Please hang on and we'll be right back. Then you go grab somebody, Philip, can you do the timer?
Yeah.
Because he just disappeared. I was at club officer training last night and
Yeah.
and the VPPR trainer didn't show up. I'm getting ready to go into my room to be trained. And the V and the district director said, "Would you do VPPR?" Okay, I'll do it. But then
Yeah.
the trainer showed up. I was glad about it. But you just handle it like it's natural.
Right. Okay.
The thing is, the thing always is let's pause for now. Timer, go ahead and time a 10-minute break. We'll come back if you need to get something to drink or something to eat. So you build that right in like, I got this.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then you get somebody to come in time. Or
Awesome.
something else that happens. Again, audio or technical. So I'm speaking, I'm the speaker and stop, Solazar. Can't hear you. Your audio is out. Please remember where you were. Timer stop timing. Let's see if we can get your audio fixed. If not, we'll go to the next contestant and bring you back in when it's fixed.
Okay.
Back in the queue.
Yeah. The pause. Okay. That's great. Thanks. Yeah.
And I've actually been at a contest where almost all the tech failed. And before they kind of all failed out, they notified everybody, we'll be posting at this point a new Zoom link. Everybody, please go here to get it. So you could also plan to do that in advance, just in case.
Right.
Especially if
Okay.
you get Zoom bombed. If you should happen to get Zoom
Oh.
bombed, you could always have a backup link.
You
Okay.
see, that's the
All right.
problem with people. That's the problem with people having PowerPoint presentations. On the one hand, you don't give them co-host rights because they're not disrupted by the notifications of people in the waiting room. On the other hand, if you enable sharing for everyone, then you're primed for Zoom bombing. So it's like a double-edged sword. That's
Yeah,
the
and that's
problem with that.
exactly why you want to work those details out before your contestants come, so that so if the one exception is Alex, then we're going to handle Alex separately without making a deal about it, and
Yeah.
we'll handle that. But we're not going to announce to anybody. Do you have PowerPoint? Do you want to do PowerPoint? And props need to be coordinated in advance.
Mm,
I've had
especially
people show up
for
at peaceful
humans.
contests with a prop that they never brought out, even though they were asked before. Now we accommodate them, but props need to be coordinated in advance, especially on Zoom.
Yeah, during the 1 minute of silence, you have to
Philip,
bring
thank
it
you,
in.
sir. Thank you for your patience. Anyone else, if you need to go, please do. And I can.
So I have a very technical question for evaluation. I always, when I'm the contest, when I'm the Zoom master, I always log in from 2 devices. The main from the desktop is like the one that I have host rights or co-host, and then I have there's an evaluation contest. I log in into the breakout room during the 5 minutes of silence with the sergeant at arms. Why? Because I know exactly, because I have the speaking order and I notify via WhatsApp or via email the sergeant at arms. You can bring in the next speaker without having to use broadcast. because I know exactly when the first evaluator finishes. There's 1 minute of silence, and then the Zoom master tells me, I mean, the chair says, Zoom master bringing the next contestant. During the 1 minute of silence, I already bring them in because I know when they're up, and it's much easier to instead of having the sergeant at arms telling them, "Hey, send them in." Because I'm multitasking, but I'm also managing the essays role because I don't want the evaluator being brought in before the
Well-
first evaluator.
Well, here's the thing, is that the tech chair, you don't have to go into the room with them. The tech chair could just you could send it through WhatsApp, you could send it through text, you could send it through whatever communication medium you decided to use, or you can even broadcast it to the room. It doesn't really matter. But the tech chair should say, we're ready for that first contestant, or we're ready for Bob, or we're ready for Susie, or whatever it is. But you don't have to go into the room with them at all. Because the real role of the sergeant at arms in the room is to make sure that when the 5 minutes are up, I'm not still writing my evaluation.
Show
Yeah,
your
so,
hands.
yeah,
Look at
put
the
your hands
camera.
up,
And look at the
so I'm not
camera.
writing my evaluation. Yeah, and that's
And people always forget to check people with long hair to reveal their ears, so they're not cheating.
Well, you know what?
I've seen
We
seen
can't
that
catch
happen.
all cheaters all the time. I'm just going to say that. We just can't. We do the best we can. And so I agree with that. But we just want to make sure that people are not writing. That's the real role of the sergeant at arms. So once the tech chair notifies the sergeant at arms, the contestants start rolling in. And just like you said, during the next minute of silence, you say, send the next one forward. That type of thing. That works. For the most part, I think most people do that rather smoothly.
Yeah, but does the sergeant at arms talk to the evaluators in the breakout room, or are they dead silent?
They should be silent. There shouldn't be any communication or conversation in that room at all. And that also is consideration of the contestants, because a lot of the contestants want that silence because even though their writing stuff is here and maybe they can even see it, it's not like the old days where we physically collected. Thank you, Shura. But where we physically collected it and took it away from them, they can still see. But they're making up their evaluation right now. And so we need to give them the silence. I'm going to stop the recording and let's.
Yeah.